Hello again and welcome to the Dev Method. Today will be the first of a series of videos where we're going to be creating a React app from scratch. So what are the ingredients for creating a React app? Well, the answer comes from understanding what the app needs to do and how it needs to serve you as the developer, as the user. And in this case, we could be working alone, we could be working with a bigger team. We could be building a product, or we could be building to a specific environment and settings. These are all questions that need some sort of answer when creating a React app. If you're starting out for the first time, Create React App, which is a project developed by Facebook, is a great way to get started. You don't have to know a lot of boilerplate on getting an application up and running. You can only run a couple of commands on the command line, and then you're ready to go. You can start experimenting, you can start learning React, you could even develop your product straight from that. There are instances where the configuration there is not going to be enough, so you'll have to do what's called an eject. So if you think of like flying on a plane and it's time to bail out, that is the eject. And what you're given at that point is this huge project of just like settings. And you might be a little overwhelmed as to like, not only why would you do that, but what are the advantages of doing something like that? There's also another option too, which is to not use Create React App. You can build your own project and your own workflow of how you want something to create. Now in this case, if we're going to create something with React, we do need a couple of at least some core components. Like there's this concept of transpiling. Some of the code that we write in React doesn't necessarily line up to just regular JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript. We write in a syntax called JSX, and that syntax is a little bit like HTML, but it's also mixed in with our JavaScript. So in order for the website to serve that kind of content to the user, it actually needs to transpile it to just regular JavaScript again. So we have a couple tools we can use to get the job done. If we were going to use Create React App, some of the things we wouldn't need to do that we will be doing today, we need to set up the project to take in JavaScript files. We wouldn't need to do that if we had to create React App. Some of the other things that we'll cover a little bit later would be like CSS files, TypeScript, Sass, SVG files, or JPEGs. All these types of files are bundled together into one particular application build, and this distribution is then put on your server to run. Maybe it's behind some sort of HTTP Nginx server, maybe it's Apache, maybe it's any of the other services out there that help you get up and running really quickly. But the whole concept of this is that we will use our knowledge of the web and React, put it into creating a project from scratch, bypassing the whole React app, and then we can take a look at the very end and compare and contrast what are some of the differences that we came up with. So what we're going through today, we're going to go through only a couple of the first steps to get up and running, and then we'll take a look at some more advanced steps in later videos. So one of the first things we have to do is we have to download our dependencies. But what are those dependencies? And then we have to transpile the JavaScript that we write to a single output file. That will be our goal. We could do multiple, but we're just going to stick to something simple here, just one single output file. And then we have to do some sort of multiple JavaScript file handling. A lot of this can be handled with some tools that we're going to introduce you to today. But other times you might have to think about other different file types to get started. So for us to get started, we only need one particular tool to help us with this, which is going to be npm. If you use Yarn, I'm sure you understand how to translate all the commands to a Yarn command. But I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little project here. So I would just go into my developer folder, make a new project. So new web app, new web app. Let's just double check I have npm installed. Ooh, cool. All right, it is telling me that I have an update. I will ignore that for the time being because with what we're doing, it's not really going to matter that much. So the next step is to get a project ready to go with npm. So we do npm init. It's going to ask us a couple questions about getting set up, what are some of the project settings we want, or some of the initial package.json settings. So I'm going to skip over a lot of this stuff because you guys might have done this before, so you get the gist. All right, so far our project only has the package.json. What does that look like? Let's take a look. Here it is. It's got a name, version, description. It's got this concept of main. We won't have to worry about that necessarily. Then we have scripts. We're going to look at that. We have the author, which is blank. That's fine. And then we have our license, which you put whatever you want there because we're not really sharing this with the world just yet. But let's get our initial dependencies all set up. So now that we have our project there, the next thing that we want to do is install some dev dependencies. Dev dependencies versus dependencies is going to be something we're going to grapple with here, and we'll see that there are different sections in this package.json that help us decide which one it should actually go in. So for us, since we're using a tool to bundle everything together, we're actually going to put this in the dev dependencies. So if we do a command like this, npm install, we want two different things. We want Webpack. We're going to be using the latest Webpack, which is Webpack 4. And then we're going to do Webpack-CLI --save-dev. Now we'll take a look at the package.json after we do this. Cool, installed. Notice we have now node modules, okay? Package-lock.json, and then the package.json. So let's look at the package.json again. Now, it's a little bit different than what we saw before. We have now this dev dependencies, Webpack and Webpack CLI. Webpack is going to be something we use to bundle all of our JavaScript together and then be able to export it as one bundled JavaScript file. There's a lot of different ways to get this done. Webpack is one of the easiest ways, so that's what we're going to be looking at today. It is also one of the tools for Create React App. So now that I have this ready to go, I'm going to open this up in a text editor so I can start editing the file. I choose to use Visual Studio Code. Obviously, you can use whichever you feel is necessary to get the job done. All right. So this scripts area, this is where we're going to use to run some of our scripts. Let me get my stuff all set up in one screen so we could take a look here. All right, so scripts. It's going to say echo, error, something, something, something. I'm going to say echo hello from a script. Okay. So this script here is something we're going to hook into on the command line. Let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. So we do npm run and then any of these keys inside of scripts. Okay, so let me show you how to actually run this. npm run and then the name of one of the keys inside this scripts object. So we just do test. And there it is. It just showed exactly what we ran, and then it shows the output of that. Just to give you an idea, if I put, I don't know, ls, which would echo everything that's listed in this current directory, run the same thing. Here it is. So the whole point of this is that we're going to be using Webpack to get ourselves up and running. Now that we have Webpack as a dependency and it's in the node modules, we can actually use these scripts to run these node modules as if they were executables themselves. So just as an example, I'll do Webpack here. And I'm going to change this to start. Start is actually a very unique key in the scripts. This way you could do npm start. You don't have to use the run part. You could drop that. So let me run that for you now and you can see what happens. Webpack. Whoa, error happened. No worries because we didn't actually put any of the arguments that we need in there. one of the arguments that we're going to want is the mode that it's in, right? What mode do we want? Well, we have development. I think we have a none mode, and then we also have a production mode. That's right. So let's just do production. Let's start over. Let's see if that fixes it. It does not. So take a look. Error in entry module, not found. So the error is in the entry module, can't find source. SRC stands for source. In, and then it shows the directory that it's looking for. So if you take a look at our file structure that we have set up, notice there is no source. So let's make one. SRC. All right. Let's run this again, which will run Webpack in production mode. See what happens. Whoa, more errors. So it's saying now the entry module could not be found inside of here. So the entry module, this is something to know about Webpack. There's an entry and then there's an output. So the entry by default is actually looking in this src/index.js file, and it can't find it. So let's make one. Index.js, okay? We will just say console log, hello world. Save it. Let's try to run this again. Nice. Let me just show you what that last thing was like. So here we go. So here's a clearer picture of the output. It had a hash, a version of the Webpack it's using, the time it took to actually run, which was only 109 milliseconds. Built at this time, shows us the asset, shows us this size, and then it says chunks. And then we have chunk names. And then we have this entry point, main equals main.js. It was taking that from index.js. So that's all we needed to get up and running with Webpack and just get that stuff ready to go. Now Webpack currently is only running in production mode, right? So if I take a look at the dist folder, this is something brand new. This was not there before. This dist has a main.js. Let's look at it. So notice this is just one long thing. One long string of, yep, you guessed it, JavaScript, because it ends in JS. So this JavaScript file is like a minified version, takes out all the unnecessary white space in your JavaScript file, and combines a bunch of files together, puts them into one, which is your bundle. That's why it's called main.js. And now you can use this on your website to bundle your JavaScript all in one. It's a neat idea. Now here's a couple of things that we haven't really talked about yet. What if, let's say, we want to do this console log, but we want it to be like, I don't know, on a web page. So here's the thing. We have just this one file, but there's no way we're going to write our application in just the one file. We're going to want multiple files, keep our stuff organized, keep the logic separate, and then test it, and then put it into the application bundle. So this is what's going to help us do that. Currently, we just have one line set here, but let's just pretend, in order to make this work, this text has to come from somewhere else. So if I go back to my sources, and I say, let's add a new file, and I call it text.json, or I'm sorry, text.js, and then let's say I put the text in here. Hello world, right? Now, how do I get it in here? What's really cool about Webpack is that it's going to look at import statements that you make here in the file. It's going to figure out a dependency tree, all the other files that are using this entry file, or that are getting, all the other files that are being used by this one single entry file. So if I say import, notice my text editor is helping me a little bit here. I can say something from a module. So I'll do text. and I want the text itself. Here it is. Now, in order for me to get this text out of here, I do export text. Whoa. Export default. So I do export default text. Back in the index.html, or I'm sorry, back in the index.js file, here's my text. Put it in here. Okay. Now let's run this again, one more time. Whoa, here it is. Can't resolve text in this file here. So the text thing about this is that this is called destructuring. So you might have seen this in JavaScript before. We're trying to take the object that this is returning and then get the thing from that. In this case, it is a string. So if I wrap this in an object, run this one more time, we should get what we expect. Oh, we don't. Can't resolve text. Oh boy. Why not? Oh, I know why we can't resolve text. This is going to be a common mistake when you're starting this up for the first time. Don't forget that these imports are actually by relative path. So dot for current and then slash. Yeah, notice there's autocomplete here that it's going to help you with as well. Nice. All right, let's try again. Cool. Look at the output. Something new. We have two different files. We have this index.js, the entry file from which we had before, but notice right after it, it has this text.js. So that text.js is that part of that dependency tree that was being figured out for us by Webpack. It took a look at this import. It then included this file in it, made the correct substitutions for us to get text out of there, and then put it into our code. So let's take a look at the main.js file. If we look a little bit further down, toward the end, notice at the very end it doesn't say hello world again. It says like void 0, right? You might think that's a little strange. So this is where like double checking the work gets really difficult, and that's why we use visual elements like React to like double check our work that it's building okay. But another thing that we could do too are unit tests. So that'll be in a later video about running your unit test. But in this case, all we're really looking to do is just make sure that the information gets to that main.js file. So in doing this, I'm actually going to change this to development mode. Development. And I want you to take a look at the difference in output. All right. Now let's take a look at the output. So the main.js file now is separated by lines. And you actually can get a little bit more of a human readable look at what's going on here. Notice some settings, some boilerplate code, but if you look all the way toward the end, look at that. Got some references to your files, so that's pretty cool. Here we go, and then here's hello world, that string, right? So there's a lot going on here, and all you need to know when doing this is that running this build is not always like the most efficient. So you have to like write some text, save your file, then run this again. You might also run into warning messages like I'm getting. So there are better ways to do this. There's better ways to keep this all like contained. So let's take a look at first the warning message, and then let's run this like every time we save the file. So export text was not found in .text. So let's see. I just take this. Did that work? Whoa, nice, nice. So in doing this here, we got our text, I guess. Now, if I really wanted to test this out, see if this is working as we think it's supposed to be, if I add an index.html, get HTML tags here, get the body, script, get my source set to main.js, and just so I understand that I'm looking at the right project here, I'm going to put it in H1. Okay, so this will be my basic HTML file. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Here it is, hello world. Now this doesn't tell the whole story. Was the script included as well? Could it find it? Well, let's open up our DevTools. And look at that. It exported the object. Pretty cool. So the one thing that I'm learning from this is that we're printing out an object. We're not printing out the text itself, right? See that there? Let me make it bigger for you. See that? We're printing out the object. So it ran our code, but it's not exactly what we expected. We need like .text. So a couple ways to go about that. Let's take a look at what we're doing here by just doing this. Okay, let's rerun this. Boom. Let's open up our file again, reload. Now it says undefined. Yeah, not totally what you might expect. So here's the thing, getting used to these imports and like getting information from them might seem a little daunting at times, and you're trying to figure out like how to actually make this work. So here's what I would do. I would call this a message. Okay, so you get the text.message. All right, now let's run it. Boom. Let's go back to our browser, reload. There it is, hello world. So this was incorporating multiple different files in one entry file. But notice I had to create that index.html. Yeah. So there's a better way to do that as well, and that's going to be in a later video too. The index.html is not going to be deleted every time I run these builds. So in this case, doing npm start, it's only going to replace the files that have the same name. So index.html is not going to change. So it's okay to leave that there for now. But the main one is always changing. Now if we take a look at everything that's in our project again, we have a dist file, modules. Oh, I could look at it over here. So if we take a look at everything that's in our project, we have the dist folder, we have modules, we have the source folder here, and then we have these package.json. Let's take a look at splitting out what this actually does here. Here's another option, watch, right? So if I say npm start, here's what's going to happen. Webpack is going to watch those files and see if they change. When they do change, like let's say, I don't know, put my name in here, it's going to trigger another build. Did you see that on the right-hand side? Let me do it one more time. Save, triggered another build. This time instead of 40 milliseconds, it took 11 milliseconds. So that -- watch is really great for reproducing the files over and over again. You still have to reload here to get your expected output. So it's not totally the best yet. We still have to reload in the browser. There's better ways to do this, but this is how you can get started with your project, just so you can get up and running. So now the next question is though, wasn't this supposed to be a project with React? Yes, it was. We're not totally ready for that yet. What we can do is add multiple files, and then we can get them in here, bundle them all into one, and then we're good to go. Let's talk about one dependency that we want to use. And then we'll get back to the React part. So notice we have start here, which is a watch. let's do another one. We'll just do build colon is usually the convention of how this is separated. We'll do prod. Okay. Build colon dev. And what this will be are just these different commands. This will be production. So now I have a couple of things I can run. So instead of just start, which starts up the development server, I have npm run build dev. There it is. npm run build prod. There that is. And then we have npm start, or I could write run start. And that puts me in watch mode. Very cool. Another one we might want to do is build clean. So what might we do here? Well, there's not really anything that Webpack's going to help us with the build clean, but we can remove our folder. That's an option. Now here's the problem with that. If I do that, I'm going to erase my HTML file. Not totally something I want. I'm going to leave that out for now. That might be helpful a little bit later down the line. Hi, puppy. Mascot's here to help us out. All right. So the next step here is let's pull in a dependency. Notice I said dev dependencies were for Webpack, right? So after we build it, we don't need anything else but that JS file, the main JS file. What if we were to pull in another dependency, say like Lodash, which we can also install with npm? Let's take a look at doing that. npm install Lodash, right? That's it. Now let's take a look at the package.json file. Notice I have dependencies and now I have Lodash listed, right? Now just to make sure everything still builds again, let's run that build. Everything's cool, right? Source, text, all good. Now here's the one thing though. Let's integrate with Lodash. Come here, import, do the underscore, means like Lodash, right? And then Lodash. Now since Lodash is part of our dependencies, we actually don't use the relative path to get to those files. We're just going to say the name of the package that it's meant to be. So in this case, it's going to be Lodash. Later on, it'll be something like React. Let's build now. Let's see if we run into any issues. Because keep in mind, any of those imports is pulling together our dependency tree. Whoa. It's a little bit different now. Let's look at this in a nicer format. So you see here, node modules, Webpack, built in, global.js. Whoa, cool. So it's actually building a couple different files now. And it's looking at some of the built-in types to our project. So like Lodash, for example. So I don't know. What if we did add? And then a number. And then another number. Okay. Results equals. Let's put it right in here. Build dev. Is that going to work? Let's reload our file. Here it is. Yeah, hello world 19. So it added two things together for us. So pretty cool. This is how we're going to pull in multiple dependencies. Now let's do one more. Let's do import React from React. Any guesses at what's going to happen next? Yeah, can't resolve React. So we didn't add it to our package.json. So let's do that. Install React. Nice. There it is. Now, can we build? Let's run that. Can we build? Let's run that. Here we are. Everything built just fine. Let's just see console.log. I don't know. Let's see what React has. Let's see if we can print that out as a thing. Reload. Here it is, React. Whoa. So React.component. That's a thing too. Build again. Check. There it is. So that's our function. Now that we have React in there, we can start using React right away. But the one thing we're missing is JSX. So that concludes the video for today. We're going to look at adding JSX to this project next. We'll have to actually move some of our built-in configuration to its own file. And that we're going to do in the next video. So stick around so that you can see and learn from this how Create React App is working behind the scenes and you create your own React app from scratch. See you later.